We're going to spend about 30 minutes today going over a new feature of ChatGPT. And you might think to yourself, well, wait a minute. I'm new to ChatGPT. I actually don't know precisely what your knowledge set is. Don't worry if this is something that's super brand new to you. Any exposure is going to be good exposure. I'm going to try to not do anything that's over anybody's head. This is a technology that is really made to be relatively useful even to a casual user, okay? So that's what we're here to talk about. We're going to introduce this new feature. It is in beta. We are going to do some demonstrations of what its capabilities entail, and we are going to go into some coding within it. Now, I want to frame that a little bit because I would imagine that a lot of you are not coders, right? Most of the population does not consist of coders. And you might have shown up here going, well, wait a minute. If our focus today is going to be, or even like measurably on coding, then this is not an event for me. And I actually want to, I want you to understand that's not my intention. My intention is actually to use that as a demonstration vehicle so that we can see some of the strengths, and we can actually see that ChatGPT does make some things that were outside of your reach, possibly within reach. So it bridges what is possible. It adds and graphs to what is possible for you to be able to do, okay? So if you can, though, help me out. A lot of you are already logged into the chat. You can just log in with whatever your name is using the guest functionality. What's your skill set and experience level with ChatGPT? And you might be like a 0 or 1. Like, so scale of 1 to 10. It's okay to be anywhere on that scale, okay? And there are times when I spend a lot of my effort working through new things, and there are times when it's not my focus at all, okay? Oh, wow, okay, so that's great. I see some zeros and multiple zeros, some ones, a lot more zeros than I actually expect, but you do see, like Shane says, I used it every day, and some 5s and 6s, you know, okay, that's awesome, okay? So whether you use it or not, hopefully you're going to get something out of today's presentation. I'm not here to evangelize anything, by the way. That's not really the point of today. But sometimes seeing something multiple times is going to allow you to perceive it in a different way, hopefully not be as intimidated. I get intimidated by new things. That's my default mode. When something is introduced to me, I get intimidated. Whether that's a technology or something in a video game that I play, whatever it is, I get intimidated. And so if you're in that camp, that, you know, I want you to understand, I empathize with that. Okay. So we're here in ChatGPT. You can see what we have. And our focus today is a very new feature. It came out early October. It's still in beta, and it does extend the capability of ChatGPT quite a bit. It actually makes it more useful. And it makes it more useful without it being harder to use. Okay, so that's a great added benefit. So I'm going to click on the drop down here just so you see where this comes from. Now, if you are new to ChatGPT and you haven't had the luxury opportunity or made the investment of becoming a subscriber, you don't get this feature without being a subscriber, okay? Now, they're doing all sorts of awesome things for non-subscribers. So you might think for a moment, well, wait a minute, I have no intention of shelling out money, so this isn't relevant to me. A lot of the things that we're going to demonstrate today in Canvas could be done with some additional effort on your part inside of the free versions that are out there. So the free version that you're able to get with ChatGPT is GPT-4o Mini. And we're not going to go into the nuances of this, but it's an incredibly powerful thing. Don't take it lightly. You can do a lot with it. And so a lot of things can be done even with the free service. Okay. So today, though, we're going to talk about Canvas. So I'm going to change my dropdown. You're going to notice because sometimes you're in this tool, you're in ChatGPT, and you may be thinking to yourself, oh, wait, I started in the wrong mode, okay? So you do have to make sure that you're mindful of the mode you're trying to get into. We're going to do a feature. Now, the decode for this is GPT is generative pre-training transformer, which basically just means it's been loaded up with a bunch of knowledge. Okay, so that's the pre-training element. It's capable of creating output. That's the generative. And transformer is basically, it's the expression of the pre-training output. It is there to take the mathematical decode of the results of the mass amount of information that it was loaded up with, and kick out something else, hopefully useful to you or at least interesting. 4.0 is really kind of the mainstream latest and greatest. O for Omni just means it's pretty versatile. It's not just text anymore. Okay, so let's get into where we are. Okay, and today we're going to talk about this thing called Canvas. And right now we haven't seen anything that is really Canvas specific. Okay, so the idea behind Canvas is it's a workspace. Okay, so let me show you a good example of just a very introductory use case for it. Okay, so I'm going to go into a document. This is my own personal document that is part of a product that we're launching that's an extension of our cyber range. So this is meaningful, okay? As in, I'm going to show you, and I didn't use ChatGPT to author it. This is all my own typing, okay? I typed all this stuff, and it's part of a 45-page document, basically instructions on how to complete an event inside of our cyber range. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this, okay? And one of my things, and I think a lot of us that do writing, sometimes we like to proof our stuff. Sometimes we don't have the luxury, the time, the energy. I really don't like proofing my own material. I'd rather proofread somebody else's material. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm just going to ask for some perspective on proofing it from ChatGPT. Okay, so I copied it. I'm going to be able to paste it in. But I'm going to say, please open Canvas for my document. Now, a lot of times this kicks open automatically. There's logic behind the scenes that I'm going to ask you to proofread. Okay. So what it should do is it should change, and this is new. Okay. Now I have an area like a document editor that I'm going to be able to have. Okay. So I'm going to paste in that thing that I had. This is part of my document. Okay. So now I have some really nice capabilities. Okay, so I'm going to go over on the right-hand side, and there's some elements on the right-hand side, and I just realized I used the wrong button. So let's go over here, and let me walk you through, okay? So the logic that they have is really kind of twofold, whether you're working with documents or code, and I'm going to show different capabilities, so we're going to see both, okay? So I have this thing. I actually haven't proofread it yet. Like this is live documentation that I'm working on. It's going to get released in 2 weeks-ish. But I'm going to say, hey, go ahead and I want you to add final polish. Okay, let's just go ahead and do that. I could also ask, hey, I want you to make suggestions. Actually, let's do that. Please make suggestions. I'm going to take myself off screen for the readability of this doc. Kamenko is asking how do I get ChatGPT with Canvas option. I had a paid version of ChatGPT. They are rolling it out. If you have the paid version, make sure you're logged in. Okay, make sure you're logged in. and it isn't out for everyone. I'll tell you what though, I would imagine, oh wow, I failed to add, and this does sometimes happen. I'm going to change it. Let's see if it's just misbehaving. There we go. So Kamenko, you should probably by now have it. So double check again, get signed in using the web version just to make sure. And this was pretty widely rolled out about a month ago. Okay. So what I just did, it made a version of the document now, and it did a substantial amount of pass. Yeah, I have it on new chats. So yeah, absolutely make sure that you're in a new chat, because and the day that they rolled it out, I kept on having to do new chats to make sure that when it did get flipped over and I was added, most of the rest of my team got it before me. I was waiting for it. Okay, make sure it's a new chat. That's a good point. Okay, so ChatGPT is really good at proofing. Okay, it's better at grammar than I am, and I'm a good writer. Okay, now doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be perfect though. Okay, one of the things that I'd want you to always be thoughtful of whenever you're using any kind of generative AI is it's really good at actually making mistakes that you don't see. Okay, it's really good at making what we call hallucinations. And that is a problem that's endemic to any generative AI. It's going to make it look good. Okay. So you got to watch out for that. So what I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to use a capability. It's going to say, I want you to show the changes. Okay. So this is now something that would have been a lot harder without any of the other versions of ChatGPT. The ability to see the delta allows you to decide whether you like that improvement. And when I was going through this yesterday in production, okay, in production, I didn't like all the things that it did. Okay. Now, usually, 2/3 of the time, it's going to be pretty good. But you're going to be able to say, yes, I like this. And by the way, I have the ability to go back to a previous version. Okay. So I haven't really scrutinized. My point is not go yes or no, this is better or not. I want you to see that, let's just say that you have a use case where you're trying to create a document. Okay. Now, think about documents where this would be useful. Think about maybe you were creating a workflow and describing how to do something to a colleague in your group, right? So you're like, all right, so you're creating instructions for them, and you rush through it. What you don't want to do is you don't want to hand over some document to somebody else and have them judge you because you misspelled things, you have bad grammar. So you could ask it for readability. You could ask it to clean up, right? And so anytime you're doing something with documentation, you might use this as a really slick way of taking your stuff up and adding polish or changing it in some way, okay, to be fit for purpose, okay? And doing that in a way that reduces your effort. There are times in the day where I kind of run out of steam. I'm a morning person. In the afternoon, I'm actually less productive. It's just my own biorhythm. Some people are flip-flopped, right? One of the things that I like doing in the later part of the day is leaning more on ChatGPT than in the morning when I'm fresh. I'm going to do some of my best work, in the morning. I'm going to write that stuff. But then I can have some lazy moments that are still incredibly productive, that allow me to take advantage of tools that allow me to keep on being productive. And that's actually fun. It's, I can fire up some music and plow away on a 50-page document and still be useful. Okay. So, and now I want to show you something else. Okay. And I do want to show you. Okay. So by the way, I could copy and paste this. So there's an easy button to just hit copy and I could paste this back into the document. I can go back to a previous version. Okay. I didn't like that. I can go back and forth. And so there's a ton of versatility in this tool. Okay. Now, the other thing that I promised today is to show you how to use this for coding. Okay, now I'm going to ask something. Okay, so I'm going to do a new chat. Okay, I'm going to hit a new chat. And I don't want to lose you because you're not interested in coding. Okay, that's not, it's not my intention. I'm not here to teach you Python or anything like that. But I want to show you how wild this really is. Okay. And I was thinking about doing this as my first demo, but I also didn't want to lose you, especially with how many people are seeing this for the first time. Okay. So let's create a video game together. Okay. Today, in the remaining 13 minutes that we have together. And it probably won't even take that long. Okay. So what's the simplest game that you would know of? What's the very first game that you ever played as a child? Okay. I got a question about creating images. You can definitely ask it to kick over what is called Dolly to create images. No image creation today, but that's part of the O. Omni means it's like super versatile, including being able to ingest images and read them, decode them. I use that a ton. And also being able to draw images. Okay. Okay. So let's see if somebody got chess. Chess is pretty complicated. Tic-tac-toe. Brian C. Perfect, Brian. I appreciate that. Pong, Tetris. Tetris is, there's whole movies on Tetris. Okay, so we're going to do tic-tac-toe. Gil in North Carolina also said that. Okay, so let's actually do that together. Please create Python code that will Python code for the game of Tetris. Okay, so it's going to kick over Canvas. Now, ChatGPT absolutely can code outside of Canvas too. So let's just say for a moment, you don't have this version. That's fine. Okay. So here's some really cool stuff. And I want you to think, okay, maybe you're not a coder. I'm not expecting you to be a coder, but maybe you've got someone in your sphere like 8, 10, 12 years old that's like a budding coder. This would be an amazing thing. And I personally use this to create an IT tool that is now loaded into our cyber range that is an attack against the cyber range. Okay. Okay. So Kyle is saying, could you also use that code for apps? Yeah, let me show you some really cool things about this. Okay. So we're not going over the code. Don't worry about the code. It doesn't matter, So you can port to a language. Okay. So let's just say Python wasn't the language of choice. There's 200 different languages, but you can see the different options that are available to you where ChatGPT is super well trained. ChatGPT is well trained on others, but I could code this for maybe JavaScript. Maybe my intention is making it a web app. Okay. C++, which was one of the first coding languages that I worked on. I'm not a coder, by the way. I haven't actively coded in 25 years. True story. Okay. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually keep it as Python. Okay. But you absolutely could use this as the baseline and translate it. Okay. So does this actually work? I don't know. Don't know about COBOL, maybe. Okay, maybe. Um, I'm gonna hit copy. Okay, so I want you to see in the upper right hand corner, I'm hitting this copy. We're gonna test it out. Okay, boom. And I've got a development environment. I've got a development environment. And let's see. Okay, so by the way, not going to teach you how to run your own development environment, but there's nothing fancy about what I got going on. Like, I set this up and I don't know coding. Okay, so I just pasted in. This is just the code that I had. Okay, just pasted it in. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit run. Okay, I'm going to hit run. Oh, says no module named Pygame. Okay, cool. Let me install that Pygame. By the way, I ran this yesterday and uh, it didn't use Pygame. So this is totally, new to me. They're little Python packages. I'm going to install that. Okay, cool. So does it work or not? There are some dependencies. Okay, let's see if, it's going to work now. Hit play. And did I say Tetris? Did I tell it Tetris? That wasn't my intention. I was like, somebody said Tetris. Oh my gosh. I was expecting this to be tic-tac-toe, but it was an effort. I got to look at what I did because I'm actually kind of dumbfounded. Tetris. Okay. So this is, we're off. The demonstration did not go as planned. So full disclosure there. So yeah. Actually, let's see. Let's see if that worked. I think it did. Okay. So that's pretty cool, right? I'm not a particularly good Tetris um Tetris person. No joke. I was totally planning on demonstrating tic-tac-toe, but this is a live demonstration. Hopefully you got a kick out of me saying one thing, doing another, but not in some strange way. Um so let's just say we didn't like that. Okay. So let's talk about versioning our stuff. Okay. So there are a lot of really cool things that we could do. Okay. So we're still talking about the power of this. Let's say you don't care about coding. You still can use this to incrementally improve your work. Okay. And so let's go over here. And what I want to do is I want to show you all the really cool stuff that you have. So you could add comments, okay? Or add logs. Like if you're a coder, sometimes you need to like step through and debug stuff. Logs are really useful for that. Fix bugs. I didn't see any bugs. But let's go ahead and slow it down. Let's say I'm going to ask this to go a little bit slower. Please make this slower because I'm getting older. My reflexes are just not as good. Okay. So this is, something that we could do. And when I was building a tool yesterday for cyber range that launches an attack against the network infrastructure, I did have to make incremental improvements and it respected my chats really, really well. Okay. So let me just scroll through because I was caught off guard because I said I thought I was doing a tic-tac-toe game and, just the power of one little word. Okay. Cool. Just looking through there. Yeah. And Kyle, it did absolutely let me control where the pieces fell. Like that was a full game, pretty wild. Like I'll just move it all to the left just so you can see. Yeah. You can't hear me like banging on the keyboard. I don't have a mechanical keyboard. Hopefully it's not that loud. Okay, some other things that I did. I mean, yesterday, just to demonstrate a little bit, I did actually have to create a clone for a tool that would attack a network. Okay, and this was purposeful. I wasn't expecting to do this yesterday. I really wasn't. I came in and I had a challenge of, in our cyber range, we have a Windows based PC because we're training people who are mostly Windows people, and the attack is mostly a Linux tool. So with the exact same workflow that I did with a few different chats, I created an attack that allowed me to build a tool. I do have to run this in administrative mode. But this tool, all I did was did a few chats. I'll go to my history. You'll see my history. I mostly cleaned it up. But this was my experience yesterday. With just a few chats, I was able to create an entire tool to do a ping sweep. I built another tool to attack the network with that was a flavor of Mac-off. So that's another use case that I found personally very empowering, and we were able to go over a barrier. Otherwise, we were going to have to descope what we're going to talk about in that laboratory experience. So it was very useful for me. Okay. I'm just looking here. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a coder. The hardest part of that coding stuff is getting a development environment that you can kind of muddle your way through. Okay. And actually, they're really good at development environments that make, all the peripheral stuff, make it easy to bring that into your project. Yeah, Canelo says, would it be able to leverage more complicated game engines like Unreal Engine? Not yet. Unreal may have some internal stuff. The way that I would think about using it for some other purposes, I'd create like small algorithms. Like maybe you had to implement, there's an algorithm called the A-star algorithm, which is a very common thing to help you navigate to a direction and navigate through landscape. Like I spent days programming that, where this would be able to take that burden and you'd be able to probably code that in 15 minutes and move on to the next thing, right? That would be the sort of thing. Carl says, I use it for BGP configs all the time, border gateway protocol, so internet routing config. That's super cool. Okay. IPAM spreadsheets into, I do a lot of data manipulation inside of ChatGPT, sometimes like just cleaning up my work. So that's also a really useful thing. Can it help make PowerShell scripts? Absolutely. PowerShell is super powerful if you're doing it like this, by the way. One of my tools, actually, I can show you that. I think I can show you that. So one of the tools that I built yesterday was this guy. So it actually, I created a PowerShell a Python program, but it actually leverages PowerShell inside of it because I had to have it tell me information about the local computer, like what interfaces are on it. But you could also have it just do native PowerShell. I'm not a Microsoft person, so I can walk you through it, but we've run it through some tests. You do want to make sure that it's, anytime you're doing something that's so varied, PowerShell has changed the different versions. You do want to make sure that it's compatible, and you have to vet everything. You have to vet absolutely everything, because sometimes something that'll look good is completely wrong. And sometimes I've even said, yeah, that looks good, and then it's got an embedded problem for it. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so we're here. It feels so fast, right? It really does. Feels like we didn't spend much time together. But that was our agenda, and I wanted to be mindful of your time. So I don't actually want to I mean, that's hopefully some eye-opening stuff that you saw. You're like, wow, just with so little effort, you can do some incredibly powerful things with ChatGPT. And part of just being, it's the year 2024, right? It's good to be apprised of what's going on in the world. The world is very different these days, and it's good to be attuned to things, whether you use them or not, right? You don't want to not use it just because you're not familiar with it. If you want to not use it because of, some other reason, that's fine too. Okay. So, cool. So, you know what I want to do? Uh, yeah. And I do want to just show one more thing, just because, got some people in the chat that are just looking for a little bit about image creation. I'm just going to go back for a moment. I'm just going to go back to, and I'm going to create a new chat, just a GPT-4, and say, give me an image of a Tetris screen. Okay. So relevant to today's stuff. The idea is this is generative AI, and usually it's text to text, but it can be text to image. That's a different aspect of this. This is not the topic of today, but you do have to tell it to create an image. It does have logic that will interpret what you write and say, what is the human being at the keyboard trying to actually do here? And if you want to know more about this sort of thing, take a look at our webinar channel. We actually did a full hour on DALL-E version 3 when it first came out. And is it going to finish? I don't know. But we got a whole webinar on DALL-E, and that is the aspect that you can kick on when you're inside of ChatGPT for image creation. Okay.